Exporters Conference. My name is Tim Modise, and I'm going to be with you for the most part of the day, coordinating the different speeches. We have a packed and exciting program that I will be directing this morning, and it will be followed by a deeper dive that will take place this afternoon, and followed by a delicious locally made dinner in the evening. But prior to that, you're going to have tea at about 11, and we'll also have lunch. Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa, good morning to you and welcome. Pleasure to have you with us here. Our host Minister Ebrahim Patel, responsible for the Department of Trade and Industry Competition, our host minister, and your colleagues, good morning and welcome. The representatives of the Gauteng government, good morning, welcome. And we are here, we're starting the program. We are going to have a number of networks launched this morning, during which I will be calling on specific businesses and worker leaders to come to the stage. All network delegates kindly come to the front, where we have reserved for you to make it easier to go to the stage. And the seating arrangements are to my left in front here. So we welcome you all this morning and hope that you will. The Black Industrialist program has supported 55 billion rands in loans, equity, or black industrial firms supported proceedings. Minister Ebrahim Patel, who heads the Trade, Industry and Competition portfolio in Cabinet, will immediately thereafter extend an official welcome to you, tell you who is here today, tell you why we are here today, and introduce our keynote speaker.
South African economy to entrepreneurs who had previously been excluded from the economic mainstream. Black entrepreneurs, bringing their talent and innovation into the economy, started creating new ventures and exploring opportunities to grow the South African economy and create jobs. Most, however, were confronted by hurdles in competing with established economic actors. Government then began providing support to overcome these challenges. Initial transformation policies focused largely on enabling Black South Africans to obtain a non-controlling stake or equity in existing enterprises. Later, it became apparent that this did not address the need to focus on supporting Black entrepreneurs achieve their potential through new enterprise development. In 2015, the South African Cabinet approved the Black Industrialist policy, which has been actively supporting the participation of Black South Africans in ownership and control of productive enterprises in key sectors and value chains of the economy. To date, the DTIC has advanced the objectives of the Black Industrialist policy through funding to applicants who want a foothold in key productive sectors of the economy. This has been supported by its agencies, the IDC and NEF, providing funding to eligible Black entrepreneurs, including those who would have had difficulty obtaining funding from commercial banks. This continues to be a journey of supporting the true spirit of entrepreneurship and fortitude that culminates into social and economic progress. This partnership has increased the number of Black industrialists active in the economy. It is a partnership that continues today, growing opportunities beyond local markets and facilitating the achievement of the aspirations of entrepreneurs across our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural Black Industrialist and Exporters Conference. Join us as we celebrate Black excellence in business.
Good morning everyone. On behalf of the South African government, I wish to warmly welcome you on this beautiful day at this inaugural Black Industrialist Conference in this hall that's brimming with energy. Let me start with an apology. I want to start with an apology for the late commencement of the opening. Time, as you will know as business people, is money. And for that reason, we wanted to start on time. We owe you an explanation. The security arrangements for the conference required that delay, and it's taken a little bit of time. Today we will have more than 1,000 delegates. We will have the CEOs of more than 650 black-owned firms drawn from all parts of the economy. There are business people here. Businesses who feed the nation through the production of food and beverages, the growing of fruit and vegetables, the farming of animals who provide the meat that we eat. There are firms here who help to generate green energy and are developing new generation battery solutions. We have companies who produce steel and engineered products and chemicals. We have businesses who make clothes, the clothes we wear, the shoes on our feet, the sheets on our beds, the cosmetics we apply, digital products and space-age technologies. There are companies here whose workforce dig the coal and the vanadium and other minerals beneath our soil, as well as those who render the services, the support services that make it possible to take that ore and transfer it to the factories here and elsewhere in the world. We have factory owners here whose components go into the C-Class Mercedes, the Toyotas, the VW vehicles produced here in South Africa. We have emerging black construction firms who have beneficiary. We have tourism establishments and businesses in the tourism industry. Healthcare firms, some who helped us to fight against COVID-19, including those who made components that went into the production of the South African-made ventilator. We welcome small businesses present today who provide important leaders who represent those workers who are joining us today. We welcome a number of representatives of worker trusts, with hundreds of thousands of workers now owning such shares. We have small panel beater shops who are here because they are today on the panels of the large insurance companies after the Competition Commission investigated restrictive practices and ways to broaden access for small businesses in our economy. We have industrialists who've invested their money, to build new factories, to expand mines, to develop new exporting firms present. Last year, off the back of the commodity boom, South Africa achieved a record performance, a third of our GDP. And some of those exports came from black-owned firms present here today. Exports to increase the value add of our exports and to create local jobs. There are businesses who in many cases have shown resilience. They've come through tough times. They are here today. They've come through COVID. They've come through the July unrest. Those who are driving in their areas the Black Industrialist program. I want to welcome our host Premier David Makura, and members of Parliament and economic regulators, the heads of the competition, consumer and lottery agencies, and government officials from many different departments. We'd like to welcome 18 funding agencies who are present here today, who are in the business of financing small and medium-sized firms. They include commercial banks, development finance institutions like the IDC, the NEF and others, and a number of funders who provide services to businesses. We have represented fine suppliers here that they can bring into their supply chains. We'd like to welcome 142 exhibitors who are showcased, and you will be able to see their products when you go for coffee later. And because pictures tell stories so vividly, we have videos of Black industrialists, we have a register, a directory, a book telling the story of about 150 Black industrialists. This is the first Black Industrialist Conference. And today you will have 5 components that brings together the storyline. There will be discussions in plenary and through high-level panels with about 40 speakers and contributors. Secondly, there's the launch of growth initiatives like the Black Exporters Network and the showcasing of women and young industrialists, component makers, filmmakers, worker ownership trust representatives, and we'll formally introduce the broad-based Black Economic Business Council to Black industrialists. Third, there's a marketplace for products that are being produced by Black industrialists. Fourth, there's a series of excellence awards that will be given to firms and to individuals selected through a process of nomination. And finally, there's a media focus with a live studio by SABC, space for interviews, the release of profiles and videos. And all of this in the conference highlights South African stories. South African stories of firms and businesses that have been built from the bottom up, of Black South Africans who've used the opportunities in a democracy to build businesses that employ large numbers of people. Today is also about the future and what we will do. In February this year, in his State of the Nation address in the South African Parliament, President Ramaphosa outlined progress we had made with the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. The President called on investors, on workers, and on citizens to work together to develop a social compact for greater growth, for investment, and for jobs. President Ramaphosa has placed transformation at the center of his focus and his agenda. And through the reimagined industrial strategy he outlined in his inaugural State of the Nation address, he's put the focus on changing the structure of the economy. It should be about industrialization. It should be about greater levels of localization of production. It should be about exporting more of our products. I now want to welcome the President of the Republic, His Excellency Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. I want to call on the President to officially open this inaugural conference and to give the keynote address. Mr. President, the floor is yours. Please welcome the President.
Thank you. Let us be seated, please. Program Director, Dada Tim Modise. I haven't seen you for quite a while. It's wonderful to see you again as you continue to do your wonderful work. Thank you very much. Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Minister Ibrahim Patel. Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwane. I also saw Minister of Human Settlements, Minister Kubai, Premier David Makura, the Premier of the Gauteng Province, and possibly other premiers who may also be here, whom I haven't seen, President of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, Ms. Zingi Swalosi, representatives of labor and political parties and members of parliament who are here, and MECs, representatives and leaders of workers' ownership trusts, members of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Advisory Council, which we recently appointed, leaders and representatives of Business Unity South Africa and the Black Business Council, Your Excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners who are also here, delegates and ladies and gentlemen. Let me also join the Minister in offering an apology for the delay that you've all suffered and being made to wait in long queues just to register to come in here. We apologize for this, and we will make sure in the future that registration processes to a mere conference do not delay people, because your main objective is to come and participate in a conference and not to stand in a queue to register to get a lapel or an armband. Today is an important milestone. It's a milestone that many of us have looked forward to. This inaugural Black Industrialists and Exporters Conference is an opportunity for us to reflect in advancing redress and equity in the South African economy. It is also an opportunity to discuss what we need to do together to expand the frontiers of economic transformation for the next decade, and the following decade, and for the future. Next year marks 20 years since the promulgation of the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Act. An act that started its genesis from black business. Black business formations felt there was a need to define black economic empowerment and also to come up with proposals of how to make Empowerment Act. It is undeniable that we have made gains in transforming a skewed and racially structured economy. By way of example, in 1994, it is said that there were around 150,000 black-owned formal businesses in South Africa. Today, there are well over 300,000, I'm told, but I think it's many more than that, black entrepreneurs who own over half of small businesses in the formal sector. And there are many more in the informal sector, as we all know, who also contribute to the notion of black economic empowerment. In addition to the progress in management, shareholding, and ownership of businesses by black, on employment equity, much more needs to be done. According to labor surveys, the number of black managers in the private sector has more than doubled over the past 20 years, from 125,000 in 2002 to 350,000 today. And obviously we want to see much more than that. In the public sector, the number has tripled. As we reflect on the progress that we have made, we must also critically examine areas where transformation has been slow and where implementation has also been weak or non-existent. As this conference recognizes and celebrates the successes of the Black Industrialist program, it also needs to set out what our responsibilities are, individually, collectively, and all of us, to advance inclusive entrepreneurship in South Africa and to consolidate real effective entrepreneurship. Our Black Industrialist strategy is underpinned by two core commitments. Firstly, to secure greater diversity in ownership and control in the economy, which is crucial for economic growth, for economic dynamism, as well as social solidarity. Secondly, a commitment to promote emerging enterprises to drive inclusive industrialization and growth of our economy. Our strategy really aims to ensure that we secure greater representativity across the economy, all the while generating greater prosperity and employment. It is aimed at opening the doors for Black people to play a meaningful role in the economy of our country. And by meaningful role, as the Black Economic Empowerment Commission said, at the ownership level, at the management level, the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, as well as the Industrial Development Corporation, the National Empowerment Fund and other agencies have supported approximately 900 Black industrialists. Over the past 11 years, Black enterprises have been supported to the value of 55 billion rand. And that is not Mickey Mouse money. This is real money that the government has put to good use to support the establishment and the growth of Black industrialists, who we are celebrating today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, deserves a round of applause for the industrialists, not so much for the government. Because this has been a real investment commitment by government, living up to its overriding objective of advancing the interests of those who were prevented from playing a meaningful role in the economy of our country. And of course, government does much more than that, of an empowerment nature, on an overall and overarching basis. Estimates by the IDC suggest that the socioeconomic returns of this program have been even more far-reaching. And this includes supporting the creation of some 70,000 jobs and adding over 160 billion. Now I realize this numbers game can tie your tongue. I remember others who have had trouble. Okay, this needs to be said correctly. Adding over 160 billion to our country's GDP. Give a round of applause to that. The trouble is, when it is a lot of money, you tie your tongue around the numbers, and small businesses continue to benefit from preferential procurement by the state and receive support to grow and to expand. Now, I want to pause and talk about preferential procurement because this is an area that we are focusing on, and going ahead with the amendment of the legislation so that we can consolidate this instrument that government has, so that through public procurement we're able to open the frontiers, they have off-take opportunities, and they have a market, and they have a customer that they can make things for, that they can provide services to. So our Procurement Act is in the process of being finalized, and it will open more opportunities for our black compatriots. The worker shareholder regime also continues to improve. Now, this is another exciting area where we've been able to make and continue to make tremendous progress. A study by the DTIC found that companies with employee stock ownership employ at least 450,000 workers. More and more companies are opting also in advancing their own empowerment processes to include workers as owners, and we need to ensure that this becomes meaningful ownership. The Black Business Council has a number of ideas in this regard, and we want those to also be incorporated as ideas and as innovative thoughts as we advance this process. These successes are economy, and yet as much as we are working to achieve the vision that was set out by our forebears in the Freedom Charter, that all shall share in the country's wealth, we have not yet overcome the structural defects and deficits of our economy. These defects are persistent and they continue to run deep. They are reflected in the high levels of joblessness in our economy. Under apartheid, racist patterns of land ownership strangled the black agricultural sector and in fact destroyed the black agricultural sector that had been grown by our forebears over many years. Black business was relegated to the townships and to the homelands, the so-called Bantustans. Not only did they receive no government support to grow, but they were also deliberately stifled. Black children did not inherit wealth in the form of businesses and capital or housing. And this is where generational poverty was spread around. Because the norm is that you inherit something from your parents, you then grow it and pass it on to your children. In our case, collectively, as black people, we inherited nothing from our parents and therefore could pass on nothing also to our children. So the generational poverty was the inheritance we got as our lives developed and as our lives were destroyed by apartheid policies. Townships lacked industrial and commercial sites, and the infrastructure needed to run businesses was completely absent. Many people, especially black women, faced the obstacles to getting loans, business operating licenses, as well as premises. And even if you were a black man, you just found it impossible to go to loans as you went to, yes, the very existing banks that still operate today. In those days, these very banks found it impossible to give loans to black people. With the country's majority deliberately and systematically excluded from the economic mainstream for centuries, it is little wonder that self-employment and entrepreneurship in South Africa are at lower levels than most of our peer economies. In other upper middle income countries to which we belong, small and medium employers and self-employed people make up around 1 in 3 of all employed people in the rural areas and 1 in 7 in the towns. In our own country, the figure is just over 1 in 20 in both rural and urban areas. According to modeled estimates from the International Labour Organization, business owners in South Africa, plus family members who work for them, make just over 17% of the total employment. This is compared to 46% in other countries, for instance, such as China, and in over 31% in other upper middle income countries. Self-employment and entrepreneurship are the engines of growth and job creation in any other economy. They support innovation, they boost competitiveness, and bring new products and services into the economy. To a large extent, this entrepreneurial deficit is the legacy of the policies of the past. We were held back and chained to the backwards areas of economic development. But 28 years into democracy, there are still barriers preventing black entrepreneurs from meaningful and equitable participation in the economy. These barriers are particularly challenging for women, for young people, and also for people living with disabilities. They are particularly challenging for entrepreneurs in townships and also especially in the rural areas. These entrepreneurs have difficulty accessing finance, accessing markets, technology, and infrastructure. There is red tape and other bureaucratic obstacles that continue to hold our budding entrepreneurs back. On a wider scale, there is also the concentrated nature of the economy and ownership patterns and inclusion from major value chains. This is a reality that was also recognized by international bodies such as the World Bank and the IMF, who, when looking at our integrated, there are just a few corporations that control everything. So the economy is not loosened to a point where there can be many players and entrants in various sectors of our economy. And this is a particular challenge, particularly when it comes to job creation and to spreading the entrepreneurial flair amongst our people. For this reason, even as we celebrate black entrepreneurial success, our eyes must look towards the horizon. While we are here to deliberate on learnings from the Black Industrialist program, as well as others, it's also about shifting the transformation agenda to a higher gear. What we want to see from this conference is the makings of a new, improved trajectory for broad-based black economic empowerment. We want to see a new type of approach to broad-based black economic empowerment, We want concrete proposals on how to leverage both capacity and resources across society. Across society, because our main remit is how we broaden Black economic empowerment, so that economic empowerment should not only be restricted to a few. It must be broadened and it must be inclusive, and our people must have a sense and feeling that they are also included. We also want a frank discussion about impediments to the expansion of Black business, not just from government, but from the private sector as well. And yes, I do invite you to also talk about how government becomes an impediment to the growth of your businesses, and how government embarks on processes that, for instance, prevent your growth or even destroy your growth. I know for a fact that one of the issues that you will want to raise, which you must raise, is how, if you transact with government, we are able to give you opportunities, but at the same time, we destroy you by not paying you on time or not paying you at all. And this is what we also must discuss. We need to talk about that frankly and openly as we are making efforts to solve this problem of non-payment or late payment by government. And look at how bad here present with you until lunchtime to hear what your suggestions are. We need to talk about the private sector procurement, about value chains, about access to finance for emerging Black businesses, and about how existing systems militate against emerging Black business. Yes, let us be open and honest and talk about how the private sector can enhance the growth of Black businesses. We should be discussing the steps we have taken and still need to take to significantly improve the steps, the disrepair of our roads, the inefficiency of our ports is what could be impeding your own growth as exporters and as producers. We need to discuss the far-reaching reforms that we are taking in a number of areas. In telecommunications, in energy and water, and the improvement that we are bringing about in competitiveness of our economy broadly, and also the steps we are taking to reduce the cost of doing business. These reforms are all necessary if we are to create conditions that enable Black industrialists to emerge, to grow, as well as to flourish. In particular, we need to act decisively and urgently to end load shedding in our economy, load shedding that is causing such huge damage to our economy. But I'm sure you are going to tell us that load shedding that is disrupting your own business operations and frustrating your efforts to reach higher levels of growth. Like every other actor in the economy, Black industrialists can simply not grow without a reliable supply of affordable energy. That is a reality and that is the truth. We know that. We have done much over the last 4 years to transform the country's energy landscape and bring new generation capacity online. But that is not enough, and we need to do much more and to move faster. That is why I've brought together all relevant departments and entities to work on an integrated set of measures to add additional power to our grid in the shortest possible time. We are currently engaged in consultations with social partners on these measures and will soon be able to announce a number of measures that provides an effective response to the energy crisis. At this conference, we need to come up with solutions to challenges facing Black entrepreneurs. How, for example, can the private sector scale up the mentoring process so that emerging Black businessmen and women, young and middle-aged and old, do not find themselves set up for failure? Industrialist and Black entrepreneurship projects funded by the private sector, whether in the form of guarantees or other instruments. What role can angel and venture capital play in bridging the finance gaps that both aspirant and established Black businesses rely on for their sustainability? And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we can begin to advance some of these businesses that have sprung up and that are going to be showcased today to the listed platform of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, so that they are able to raise more finance, so that they are able to demonstrate that, yes, they are growing businesses, they are reaching out to new and broader markets. We need to also find out how we can mobilize Black capital in one shape, form, or other, to support some of these emerging Black industrialist businesses. Many others have done it on that basis to support and grow their businesses. And how can we mobilize? Because there is a lot of capital that resides amongst our people. And how can we come up with financial instruments to harness that energy of that capital and bring it to bear to support these growing industrial businesses, so that one day we too can have Black industrialist companies like General Electric, Black industrialist companies like the big companies that we have that play at a global level, and how we can have national as well as continental champions resides in our own country. So I do want us, maybe when we next meet, I do want to hear that some of the companies are emerging, and they're also going to be the New York Stock Exchange and to be listed on the Lagos Stock. Their businesses. That is the dream that I would like us to all have. I can see that you are so afraid that you don't even begin to realize that this is an achievable dream. It is an achievable dream. Another aspect that we need to also focus on is research and development. I would like to see the various Black industrialist companies that we are going to celebrate today to also, at the next iteration of this conference, and they are beginning to focus on research and development so that they can grow better, so that they can look to the future, produce better products, and innovate more and more. I want to hear them say they are underpinning what they are doing with innovation, with creativity, with creating new products and new services. And that should be done through research and development. It has been found that companies that focus more on research and development are able to achieve a lot more. I used to be associated with a company where one day I was walking around and met a young person, and I asked him, "What do you do here?" And he said, "Nothing really." And I said, "What do you mean you do nothing?" He says, "No, I just work here to think and to come up with new ideas. And that's all I do. Sometimes I don't even come to the office. I stay at home." And I looked at him, he just had jeans and torn techies, and in the end, he was the one guy who developed the SMS system for us. SMS, as you might know, was started here in South Africa and developed a whole range of other things. Be brave enough to bring in young people who, even if you bring them in and you don't give them specified jobs, let them come and imagine things and dream and innovate. And one of the other areas is that those type of people will help us register patents, will help us register copyright, patents, and through patents, we're then able to move to the upper level of development. The deliberations that you're going to have in this conference should result in commitments from the private sector to procure more from emerging black business and to support their integration into value chains. And I see that there are a number of black industrialist companies here that are linked through value chains with other bigger companies. We want to see more of that. They must do this even if it means changing value chains to accommodate black business. Unless tangible, sustainable measures are implemented, we run the risk that empowerment opportunities will be confined to black businesses transacting with the state. We want black businesses to broaden their horizon and to transact with whosoever and the key players in our economy. We run the risk that the private sector and the big business in particular makes little or no contribution to the empowerment of black entrepreneurs. We run the risk of stifling economic growth if we don't approach it on a broader basis. An economy that only benefits a few and does not reflect the country's demography will never be sustainable or be dynamic from a growth perspective. There can be no growth without economic inclusion and without a business sector that reflects the diversity of our people and our society. And this has been the real problem of our South African economy, because in the past it never reflected the diversity of our country and the demography of our country. There can be no inclusive recovery and reconstruction of our efforts. This is the main remit of this government that I lead. Forget what others to insist that broad-based black economic empowerment must be at the heart of the transformation of our economy, and we will continue to resist. The newly appointed BEE Advisory Council has been tasked with advising on the future trajectory of broad-based black economic empowerment as we rebuild from the years of slow growth and the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Council comprises accomplished South Africans with diverse experiences as well as expertise in business, in the economy, in labor. Our vision for the future of black economic empowerment will build on our successes, will learn from shortcomings, and must be agile enough in the response to the realities of the national and global economies. I'm pleased that exporting by black industrialists is one of the themes of this conference. This conference will be discussing opportunities to access other markets on our continent through the African trade relations between South Africa and Cote d'Ivoire, and indeed West Africa as well. And this must be seen as a process that you as black entrepreneurs or industrialists, economic growth, social transformation, and expanding prosperity amongst our people. In conclusion, I wish to thank Minister Patel and his team for convening this, but also celebrating black excellence in the economy As government, we want to pledge our support to the endeavors of Black business people, women entrepreneurs, youth entrepreneurs. We also want to challenge South African business to play its part. Established businesses need to understand that transformation is vital for sustained and inclusive growth, and that it is in everyone's interest that the substantial capabilities of the private sector are mobilized to support broad-based Black economic empowerment. Working together, we can grow this economy, we can create jobs, and we can ensure that no one is left behind. It is therefore my pleasure enriching and show us the way forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, President Cyril Ramaphosa, for your remarks and also for the well wishes and positive outcomes from this conference. Well, there's still a lot to learn. The way I understood your message to me and to everybody in this room is that transformation is an imperative, but then it has to be transformation for growth. And I had the opportunity recently to interact with some of the industrialists that are being mentioned here that have been given support, and some who have started on their own initiative to grow their businesses. And within that short time, Bafana are performing to par compared to their peers or not, whether my piano is better music than house music. They said, you've changed. I say, why? They say, no, these days you talk about value chains, you talk about global logistics, you talk about input costs, you talk about energy, you talk about market creation, you talk about regulatory frameworks. Hey, we rise him. No way, things are changing these days, you know. You engage people, and this is the language they speak, so you better. So that is the kind of transformation I think, Mr. President, would like to see, that we must start talking like that. And I would like to thank the industrialists that I interacted with for improving my understanding of what's going on in our economy. In a short time, we're going to have our first high-level panel, which will look at and assess the impact of broad-based empowerment, what we can celebrate by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Godongwana. But in the meantime, let me put the panelists on notice. Mayor Gloria Sorobe of Witpold, Mr. Kuseni Dlamini, Chairperson MassMet, Mebusi Mabuza, Chairperson of IDC and BRICS, and Mesindi Mabasa Koyana of the Women Chartered Accountants to join him. I've mentioned your names, be on standby, and you're going to be on that stage to my left. But before you come up here, let's take a look at the industrialists that I mentioned earlier. Thank you.
The dawn of democracy has reaped the benefit as Black expanding employment, with a clear objective of creating multiple and diverse pathways and instruments to enable the entry of Black industrialists into strategic and targeted industrial sectors and value chains. The government's Black Industrial Program has achieved significant progress and is geared to further increase the participation of Black industrialists in the national economy. Industrialists are important to market economies. Their activities not only drive economic growth, the jobs created are important for national development. In the context of South Africa and its history, the need to promote the creation and long-term sustainability of Black industrialists was the driving force in establishing the Black Industrialists program. Indeed, the South African economy can only grow if we bring more Black South Africans into the productive economy. A new breed of Black entrepreneurs is emerging. This is a group of individuals who are directly involved in the origination, creation, significant ownership, management and operation of industrial enterprises. By creating new products and services, they stimulate employment and contribute to national economic development. Allow me to take you on and hear their stories and just how they have emerged as recognizable industrialists amidst the various challenges that may have come their way. The BT Industrial Group is officially licensed to act as a manufacturer, distributor and exporter by the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. We caught up with Mr. Khomotso Lekola.
Khomotso, pleasure to catch up with you again, my brother. Tell me a little bit more about your business journey before I discuss specifics with you.
I went to school, university, joined the corporate sector. About 15 years ago, I decided to go out on my own. I refocused my energies to trying to look more at systemic problems that the developing world, which is where we are, where we could have the biggest impact. So I went deeper into engineering, where we were doing water management on mines, and at the time we were procuring pipes and other durable goods. And myself and my team at the time, we got into a debate of saying, if we're going to be meaningfully impacting, should we be procuring?
Sure.
What if we actually made the products? We decided in 2018 to start producing pipes. And that's really where the story started, is that if you don't control the means of production, if you don't have the know-how, the capability, you are going to be subservient to those who do. We found South African private sector companies that were interested in procuring our product, but we also became very successful overseas. We have not done much commercial engagement on the public sector. So you can imagine now we've developed this really wonderful product. How do you then get it into public sector? Do you do it through a tender? I don't know. So it's not an area that we've spent much time trying to unpack. We've rather focused on where we knew we could make things work in the way which we understand.
Khomotso, thank you very much for talking to us. Sure.
MCR Plastics is a manufacturer and distributor of automotive interior components based in Port Elizabeth. We linked up with Mr. Morgan Waterboer to get a clearer insight on how he evolved from being an employee to become the supplier to VW.
Quite an interesting journey, apparently, that you've traveled the past, 20 years or so up to where MCR is today?
For 17 years, I worked for Volkswagen, where I will be traveling the world for a lot of projects that we sign off with regards to the tooling. In 2019 was my biggest break within the market, to see that there is more entrepreneurs like us needed within the industry to become suppliers to the automotive sector. Hence, MCR Plastics was registered in 2017, but we only started to trade in 2019. Unfortunately, 2020 happened where COVID-19 was a devastated situation for MCR Plastic. Our breakthrough came through Volkswagen of South Africa, where we got our first contract for a local supplier within Kariga.
Morgan, thank you very much and all the best to you.
Highly appreciated.
Remco Manufacturing specializes in the manufacturing and supply of complex mechanical assemblies and components for the rail, telecoms, infrastructure and electrical sectors. Established in 2015, the company has a 51% black women ownership held by Mahuma Investment Holdings. The Mahuma siblings, Gwen and her brother Teboho, let us in on their journey. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you about your business. Very fascinating story from what I've gathered.
We grew up in a family that was business orientated. The first transaction that we did, we have a company called Mahuma Investment Holdings. Mahuma Investment Holdings basically focuses in the infrastructure sector. So when we started initially, we started by buying equity into a company that manufactured roof bolts for the mine.
You manufacture petrol pumps now?
We one of the main suppliers for Gibela and Alstom, who are manufacturing trains for Prasa. So we make actually quite a hell of a lot of products for them.
Which brings me to my final question then, that, South Africa has got a variety of economic challenges. What do you think people should expect, those who want to be like you?
As a black woman who probably won't have access to a lot, unlike our white counterparts, it's true, that is the case. But I still say there's a lot of, vice versa, there's also a lot of opportunities because you're black. When we went to the IDC, we didn't think that, you obviously hope you'll get the funding, but we didn't think we will get it, and we got it. Because we had a great idea.
Thanks again for sitting down for this chat with me and also educating me in the process. I appreciate it.
No, thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to be heard as well.
On the southern slopes of the Soutpansberg, near Thohoyandou in northern Limpopo, lies a citrus and banana farm spanning over 202 hectares. Easy Farm is an operation founded by an agricultural pioneer, Israel Nemaurani, in 1990. Easy Farm today has 115 hectares of citrus, mostly Valencias, and 60 to 70 hectares of bananas. We are now joined by Lavengwa, Israel's son, who is currently running the farm. Tell me the history of Easy Farm. How did it become your family's asset and now in full production mode where it is?
Well, basically my late dad started the farm in 1990. We were still young by then. Basically he moved from Tembisa and then he bought himself a piece of land in Venda. Well, basically our main crop is citrus. We've got different varieties of citrus. 80% of the citrus basically goes to the international market. The 20% goes either to the juice factories in Tzaneen or we sell it locally to the Baki trade. The bananas is all local. Basically, I've got 60 hectares of land on the farm, which is still virgin land. I need to establish that on soft citrus, which I've already signed a contract with the owners of that certain cultivar. And yes, they are willing to come on board.
It actually triggered a thought in my mind that you could have chosen to be a consumer, but you chose to be a producer.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Lavengwa.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. VM Automotive, based in both East London, Eastern Cape, as well as in Roslyn, Gauteng, is a fully transformed 100% black-owned supplier of aluminium and steel automotive panels. As part of its flagship innovation, VM Automotive introduced laser blanking as a new technology in the manufacturing process for the latest C-Class Mercedes-Benz W206 model. Mr. Gibson Njenje took us in to share with us the journey as an industrialist in the automotive sector. Thanks, Pragib, for allowing me into your office space and having this opportunity to talk to you about VM Automotive and your involvement in business. How did you get involved in the automotive industry?
No, thank you for coming through, Tim. Yes, I started the company in 2012, and having been interested in the automotives, but from 2013, I then focused on building my own company. We started supplying Mercedes from here, actually, until the series. The old series ran out, the W205. Now they're running to W206. But W205, we supplied from here, from Roslyn. So in 2019, we put in a bid for the contract of the W206 with Mercedes-Benz. And we went to our funders and told them this is what we're doing, and we would want you to support us. They said, okay, look at it. Let's see what it looks like.
Gibson, Njenje, thank you very much for talking to me. I appreciate your time. Smith Capital designs and manufactures aerial platforms, drilling rigs, as well as truck-mounted cranes. A family business operated by Mrs. Fortunate and Mr. Sipho Mdanda. Mrs. Mdanda took us through her operations in Germiston. And thanks for allowing us to pay you a visit here and look at your plant. Quite impressive work that's going on here. I would have thought that you've been in business for 20, 30 years, but interesting, revealing that it's as a family, right?
Yes, as a family. As I say, my husband and I, Sipho Mdanda, are in the business together.
Yes.
We ventured into this journey in 2015, where we used all our savings, and he left corporate. I still stayed on just a bit to make sure we put everything in place. We sold his shares, we used our savings just to have the skin in the game, and then we acquired our first business, which is Kollega in KZN, which designs, manufacture truck bodies and trailers. We acquired Smith Capital in 2015 November. We had to go and knock for funding. We knocked at different commercial funding institutions. We knocked at DFIs as well, and NEF did approve us.
And how much support did they give you?
We got a 26 million loan to acquire the business, and we are quite grateful because it allowed us to get funding at a very competitive pricing rate and terms. And also what we are very grateful for with this funding is it came with very, very good post-funding support, which I am assuming and I believe most commercial funding institutions don't provide to that extent, and also access to markets. So that was also a plus for us.
Well, everything of the best to you and your family.
Thank you so much, Tim. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. AfCTA is a South African homegrown company with over 60 years in the health and beauty industry. Upholding the vision of the Black Industrialist policy, AfCTA has created a platform to raise other industrialists. We met up with Mr. Nizam Kala and spoke to him about his participation in the advancement of the industrialization agenda.
Well, gentlemen, thanks that we are able to chat. Nizam, going back to Maravastad days, and Jabu, going back to the Hillbrook days.
Thank you for having us here. And if you look at it, we started as a small manufacturing operation, and we faced many challenges. Yeah, so we are in different sectors. The personal care business is broken up into skincare, fragrances, home care, sun care, oral care, and hair care products. So the IDC, we started working with them since 1988, and the DTI has helped us with the place we're standing on currently with critical infrastructure program. So we've been blessed with a lot of support, and we believe that this has helped us fast track our growth to become a meaningful player in the market.
Jabu, you had your own product range when I referred to the Hillbrook days, and now you are part of the AfCTA group.
You see, I had my own factory, in Wynberg. Every time when you grow into business, the growth is costly. So it's either you need external injection, funding, or you partner with people that are sharing the same idea with you.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for talking to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my brother.
Thanks very
God
much.
bless.
Thank you very much.
Established in 2014 by two young black industrialists, Terence Liduma and Phumzile Nkomo, Makamisa Foods specializes in the creation of flavored food sauces such as jalapeno and pickled vegetables. Makamisa has since grown to become a notable brand, drawing the attention of key players such as famous brands. We had a moment to engage Ms. Phumzile Nkomo, who led us in on their unique journey.
Well, Sis Phumzile, thanks very much for granting me the opportunity to talk to you about your business's remarkable story, or should I call it your remarkable story, because you were there at the very beginning.
We started the business, we were bootstrapping. It was my husband and I in the business. And we used to do expos and your family market. So I used to sell. I sold at the markets, and then he was negotiating bigger deals and, trying to get us certified. Now, this product was done by my father in the kitchen at home. And so we were discovered at the market. So famous brands came to the facility where we were contract manufacturing our sauces and our relish, and then they wanted to do business with us. So we approached the IDC back in 2016, 2017, and then we approached the DTI after that. So the total funding that they gave us was It's about 66 million at the moment, which 44 constitutes the capex part of it, and then the rest is just the OPEX. So they've played a very big role in our lives and in the business. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Us to step up as industrialists and take advantage of the schemes within the Black Industrialist program, as this will surely help grow the South African economy.
Should we kick off? Shall I start? Whoa! I didn't know that. Thank you very much, Mr. President, colleagues, ministers, distinguished guests. I'm going to be moderating this session. I don't think we've got enough time. Be that as it may, we asked to talk about BEE. Two pillars I'm going to pose to you. The first one is that manufacturing in South Africa has declined from more than 23%, now sits at between 13 and 14%. To what extent can we use this in Black industrial strength to reverse that trend? That's one pillar. The second pillar is to take the challenge from the president that says, let's dream big, but I'm going to kind of moderate them, change that a bit and say, you're all stalwarts in the Black empowerment space in one way or the other. What are the lessons? What are the pitfalls? What are the successes? And what are the minor changes we need to do moving forward?
I'm probably the oldest of the panelists, so that's why he's starting with me. I think the first one, Minister, is that there's always a question whether BEE has made a difference. I have the privilege of having worked under the old regime and the new regime. I can safely say yes, it has made a massive, massive difference. If you have worked as a professional before 1990 and you worked as a professional post 1990, there's a big difference there. I will just also say that people are always shocked when I'm saying the biggest example of BEE is MTN and Vodacom. People forget that even the way they were structured and formed, there were rules, there were conditions, the ownership and the conditions of what they should do was very clear, universal access and all that kind of thing. We should count that as our success story for BEE. Back to your quick questions. Manufacturing, why is it reversing? Is there an opportunity in Limpopo? We had an infrastructure grant because we had to bring the power line to where we were, and they pay a 30% for that, and that's for everyone. And then the second opportunity was what we call the Section 12I tax incentive. We have priced that to be almost...
Mr. Patel is fighting with me over Section 12.
Well, you fight, we've got ours already. Maybe you don't care now. We've got our Section 12. But we've priced that benefit of deferring our taxes up to 500 million rands. And I think as a manufacturer, you cannot not say that is facilitation by government. And I'm saying that with some bit of authority because we're the recipients of that. Thank you, Minister.
Let's go to amendments, CEO, sir. But let me put a different question to you. You are a funder in IDC. A number of Black business persons there will know the story. You've got a project, 100 million rand, IDC and any other financial institution says to you, okay, 60 million will give you 60%. Skin in the game is 40%. Where do I get this 40 million?
And so it says the chair of the Transformation Committee. So this is where the opportunity, I think, is for us going forward. We haven't seen any structures for collateral. We have to support especially black entrepreneurs insofar as collateral is concerned, and every funding institution will require collateral. So I think specific, specialized structures that are supported, especially by government, would be important there. The second one is the skin in the game, the own contribution. There I would like to see more of the established businesses coming in as angel investors. This is in addition to whatever else is provided. Coming in as accessible angel investors for the young people who are busy trying to build their businesses. We haven't seen enough of that in our black community. I think it's a little more established in South Africa insofar as the white community is concerned. We know for a fact that an entrepreneur in my family can't come necessarily to an uncle. So those black industrialists that are established should please step into the fray there.
What's your take, Mr. Lame?
Yeah, I think we need creative structures that can close that gap, and to the point that the chair of the IDC has made, we need venture capital. There's no culture of venture capital in the country. We need the angel investors, but we also just need to get the DFIs as well, just to be more creative in terms of enabling black industrialists to access funding. Because I've seen cases where certain key strategic projects and opportunities for black industrialists end up being lost because there is no own contribution. To your point, Minister, most people ask, where do I get the 40% or the 10%? It can be material at times.
Cindy, what are the key lessons?
It's a privilege sitting with the colleagues on the panel whom I've always looked up to, because as one of the lessons, I met Gloria when I succeeded her as a CFO of Transnet about 20 years ago. And key in that journey in the public sector, which trailblazed transformation, was that government always wanted to support us in succeeding. Even when you were hailed in Pretoria, the message was always, "Ningasport," don't disappoint us. It was about excellence in how you deliver. It is sad to say that in the last 10 years, that has changed, and also landed a few of professionals into trouble. I bring this because the president challenged us that we must bring issues, the elephants in the room. He mentioned how quickly government pays, but also one of the key things that has destroyed entrepreneurship is the corruption that black entrepreneurs have had to face.
That takes me to the issue of procurement. There's always an argument that we need to use procurement as a tool of broadening the base and changing the structure of the economy. And the president has alluded to that. The key question that arises, how can we utilize that tool, but at the same time avoid this notion, accusation of corruption, efficiency, and effectiveness? How do we do that? Mama Gloria.
I think I guess the biggest thing here with this transformation thing is that we must understand that the exclusion was legislated by the previous government. And the government, this government, tries to unlegislate that through BE Act, Procurement Act, and so on and so on. The most important thing here, why I'm mentioning this, is that what it means for us BEE players, we also have to be just as efficient and put our brains forward to make sure that this undoing of that sophisticated instrument is well catered for by so much intellectual capacity and the energy and attention to detail. So when we come to this thing about the whole system is.
Okay, we change the subject a bit. The allegation is that we're enriching a few. How do we deal with that narrative? Because it's beginning to counter, my view is an attack on the initiative for black economic empowerment. And people are then finding all labels. One is enriching a few. How do we get out of that trap?
So we haven't been able, I think, to get the information easily accessible to as broad a base as possible. If I live in the Vembe district, I should be able to know exactly where to go in order to get access to funding for my small or medium-sized business. And I'm not convinced that the information is as available. Pre the BE Commission, most certainly there was a tendency, because the BE transactions were driven by the owners of capital, largely. So there was a tendency to concentrate. Once they got comfortable with you, Minister, then you would get the next transaction and the following one. The legislation then started talking to employment equity. I'm a beneficiary of that. It started talking to enterprise development, access to value chains, and the funding gap, however, still needs to be addressed. And we can't, it's important for the development finance institutions, of course, to play their role. Commercial enterprises also see the opportunity to come on board. The last requirement, I think, is that when a person is not funded by an NEF because they don't perhaps fit the mandate or fund them, then we would start seeing more people being caught in the net.
How would I, taking Vembe as your example, which you have utilized, how would, if I'm sitting up there in Vembe, get to know what are the opportunities available, what system should be in place to assist me to do that? Mr. Zame?
So just linked to the procurement question that you raised earlier on, what we do at Massmart as one of the big retailers in the country is really to be very intentional in terms of using procurement as a way to support and promote black industrialists. We have a supplier development fund that we set up, and the target there is to promote local sourcing, and we're partnering with local manufacturers that get offtake from us, and we also assist them to be able to export to our stores outside of South Africa. And in some instances, we've also leveraged our relationship with Walmart, who are our controlling shareholder, to assist local suppliers from South Africa to access the global Walmart supply chain. And to the point that the president was making about really having a continental vision of growing black industries that are not just limited to opportunities in South Africa. I also strongly believe that there's a massive opportunity to be captured globally if we target the top global multinationals in the world and try and twin them and align them with local black industrialists.
Cindy, just to take on this sector, Massmart belongs to the retail industry, which is untransformed. It does not do even what he's talking about.
Yeah, I welcome the challenge, Minister. I'm very happy to say we have a good story to tell at Massmart.
No, I'm saying maybe as Massmart you do.
Yeah.
But is that, Cindy, is that story can be extended to the entire sector?
I guess.
And I'm just citing not only that sector, there are sectors which are lagging, moving and not moving fast. What instruments what government can do?
Well, it is true that the highly regulated industries, the ones that license, are the ones that have actually moved ahead. I mean, as we sit here, there's the Sanlam Gauge launch of the assessment of how far have we gone as a country. And one of the things that is coming out very strongly is that your financial services sector, your mining sectors, ICT, because for Spectrum, you needed to actually make sure that you meet some of the broader transformational plans of government. Recently as well, the sugar industry, when it needed the support from DTIC, the master plans are also calling for organizations to meet government's requirements in transforming the economy. BE has evolved the broad base, because if you all recall, I mean, we could put it is, we did see your nails, your JCI, your Real Africa And that led to an era where we also started seeing maybe some of the union investment houses. The second phase was when we started seeing BE looking beyond ownership. And that is when, after the President's BE Commission came up with the different structures. And probably that phase is the one about black industrialists, in making sure that we're not just concentrating at an ownership level. Management control is a big challenge as well. That is what the assessment is demonstrating, because you can come and be my shareholder, but don't stay as far as possible from my business, because I don't think you understand it. So again, that's where indeed we need to harness the entrepreneurship, only in the last 5 years where we started embracing it, where we can allow management to also do buyouts like that gentleman supplying some of the components. Take the wins and move on and build on with them. It is an evolving journey. And I guess as we go forward, key to it is to move away from the tick box exercise. Are we all singing from the same hymn sheet as a country in understanding transformation together, that it is something that society needs to actually...
Private sector, from government, and using transformation as leading positions in key markets. And that requires all of us to rally around, as Cindy says, same kind of hymn book, playbook that we refer to, and that we can all understand and share to be able to work towards that goal of building sustainable black industrialists.
The key is not necessarily to you, to all of us as panelists. The key issue is where it's good to say it, but how do we make sure that we can, how do we develop that? I'm talking to all of us as a panel.
I think, Minister, I'm coming back to us again as the privileged ones who have been able to participate. I see this room is full of blacks, for example, and they don't come from Sandton. People must go back to their homes and talk about transformation. We've got to highlight the opportunities for those people in Vembe, in Candane, in Livubu, everywhere, because the opportunities are there. As we sit in these boardrooms, we need to translate what we hear in the boardrooms back to their lives again. So I sit in the bank board of Nedbank. I need to understand how this credit committee thing works, and why is it that a lot of people are thrown out of the system, and then translate this back to the boardroom and say, simplify this bit and that bit and that bit. Of course, don't irritate Lysasia there with his National Credit Act. Do the right thing, all the risk mitigation thing, because now you know the language, right? You can be responsible as a bank board member and also as this rural girl, because you know what's required there. Nedbank, we took them all over the country. We started with Akonhoek, because Akonhoek is a village with the biggest population in the country. And you're saying, how come all of you are not here? Whether it's Standard Bank or it's Nedbank, of course, they had to put up a branch. You go to Mount Frey, you go to Gobo, you go to all these places and actually talk about it and translate it in the language that is well understood. Agriculture is not going to be in Sandton, it's going to be in Livubu, it's going to be in Willow Vale, it's going to be in all these places. Translate that. Go back to Busi and say, these people have no collateral because they have no security of tenure on anything they own. Give them some slack, do something. Let's be innovative around the collateral. That's really what we should be doing.
And Minister, we've been shy, I think, to talk about the success stories. If I may go back to the examples that have been mentioned by my colleagues. Telecom sector, the license is currency, and it was currency. A lot of people benefited from that. The mining sector, even if people exit, that license is currency. Gaming, we've had successes there that we haven't talked about enough. So I'm concerned, for example, that we have missed perhaps a window of opportunity insofar as renewable energy procurement program was concerned, there was a BEE and therefore became currency to them. I think if we kept up that kind of if we talk about where we've succeeded, we'll be able to reinforce those lessons going forward.
Here's the point. What instruments or incentives or anything, I'm not necessarily saying beat them up. It may well be what you need to incentivize them to do. Take the positive journey of transformation. Are there any instruments we could use?
Except for tax incentives.
I don't know. When you talk about taxes, I get worried because.
Get nervous.
I think, Minister, there is no substitute for setting the right tone from the top. We need leaders that embrace transformation. At board level, you need the right tone. At the CEO level, you need the right tone. We are pleased with the progress we've made in our business at Massmart, for example. Our board is transformed. In terms of procurement, we source 11.7 billion from black-owned companies, 1.7 of which is from small businesses, which have a turnover of up to 50 million rand per year.
But Mr. Patel may say, Mr. Patel may say, Massmart is
Minister Patel, his visionary leadership.
Yeah.
He was very instrumental in the setting up of the Massmart supply to do even more. We're encouraging our colleagues in the retail sector to do so. Some of them come to us to share, to learn from us and ask for advice. It can't just be one company. It can't just be a few. It has got to be something that cuts across the entire economy and across all sectors.
Sandton, that was your point.
That was my point, Minister. And I guess one of the things that became very clear as citizens of the country was the looting in KZN, where, yes, there could have been other elements to it, but core was where people felt they had nothing to lose because they had nothing anyway. And we were very robust in our conversations around the township economy, which meant we needed to have visible plans. That conversation, I must be honest, rose, and it's faint at the moment. So it is important that we are very clear around some of those plans. And the issue of leadership, as Kusteni says, is very important in setting that tone, because even as we speak about play in that space, there's also a discipline, and some of the things that we also, when we talk about skills and development, it's not just the hard come. Because again, we need to probably start moving away from a mentality of being spenders. It's sad as a country when, it's a great business. I can imagine that in terms of how many bags or how many, that were bought for just that weekend could have taken so many children to school. So it's also a mindset of everybody. So that whole conversation as a people is very important among an entrepreneur now. I also come from a broad-based environment because we were fortunate in trying to build the number of black women CAs because we felt the sense of giving back. When we woke up at the time, there were few of us, only 2% in the country, and now we are 15%, but still of a 50,000 that must support this growth in the economy that we need. We've only got 50,000 chartered accountants in the country. I'm talking everybody. So when we looked at an investment holding company in this entrepreneurial space, it became clear that you still need the few who have the passion in being entrepreneurs to lead. So both can exist, because we also have been challenged in that they are the broad-based, and yet some of the companies are saying, I want to see you rolling your sleeves and doing the hustle. Want to be financial investors, and others will want to actually run the businesses. And I know this is a conversation that the BE Commissioner has been and diving into the businesses that we are investing in. And thanks to Minister Patel giving us a practice note around how we manage some of those intricacies amongst ourselves with our own ambitions as black people.
I'm sure when you talk about township economy, is music in somebody else's ears sitting there. Mr. Parkstow is driving that is even made possible.
Townships, Minister, the industrial parks, that we grew up seeing. I mean, as black people, we don't even own the bread value chain. You know, the factories are closed. So just something like that, the taxi industry, we do not own the full value chain. So there are some hanging fruit where we are actually right there at the doorstep, and we need to make sure that we unpack this. So those are some of the things, ministers, that are actually right here in front of us and at the doorstep of our townships.
If one day you were to wake up in Mr. Patel's shoes, and you're asked with this challenge, we're going to evaluate this black economic empowerment. This is where we are now. Where to from here? Now, you wake up with Mr. Patel, you have got to say, I've got to take this thing boldly. What would you do?
First, I don't like his shoes. Very stylish. We'll make up, Minister, during lunch. I think where to take it from here is that we do have, we haven't done enough, but we have enough of the capacity, as in people who have practice in the space. And so the big thing is to oblige those, to assist government to do more. By that I mean, we now know the tricks of the trade. We have seen sham transactions. We have seen, we've been hit hard by that the Financial Services Charter is still not getting there. It's still requiring things that people don't have. We've seen a lot of things.
What are you saying about me?
I'll bring that to you. And then we've also seen, for example, how, in spite of how we want to be strong in agriculture, we are very strong in agriculture.
No, when there wasn't
yes, we are dependent on input players, fertilizers, and all of that. We've seen the shenanigans there where we're doing the maize farming in Eastern Cape, rural Eastern Cape. Nobody has ever been there. And what do the input providers do? They bring their expired product first grade to make sure that they do more than they are actually called to do. Yes, we are entrepreneurs, but there's a social element to it. We have to go back and actually make sure that this thing is translating broader and are smaller than the equipment we own. So Minister Didiza must go to Minister Mbalula and say, put those bridges there, make those roads waterproof because it rains there, that's why we are there. And so, but to share with government with practical things as opposed to just whinging is really what we have to do.
Youth can be included in this drive towards a more inclusive economy. I don't think our companies will be the retail schemes, but it's of course outside of the Black Industrialists opportunity.
Let me just say, the World Bank has published a report. They normally do an update in every 2 years about South Africa. One of the reports they published was the level of concentration in the economy. Recently, the Competition Commission has published the same kind of talking about the level of concentration in the economy. How does that impact both on spreading the cake and on developing black industrialists?
I think, Minister, that can be an impediment in terms of creating opportunities for new entrants in certain key sectors. It's something that requires very smart regulations, and I think Minister Patel and his colleagues are very much capable of helping us with that in terms of coming up with mechanisms that will open up spaces. You're right, there is a lot of concentration in certain sectors of the economy, but also having said that, if we look at some of our companies in global terms, we need to conceptualize and come with some ideas to create global champions that are from South Africa while democratizing access to for black industrialists to the local economy, because that is a barrier.
In 2 minutes, now all of you moving from you.
Sure that black businesses are leading in those industries. The biofuels, for example, Minister, in the sugar cane business, as we diversify away from sugar, the fintech space, we need the new industries to be driven by black people.
Mr. Kusa?
First point from my side, I'll say now have 900 black industrialists. What is the target for next year, for the year after? And secondly, can we set clear targets on black industrialists that are going to be part of the top 20 companies in the stock exchange in South Africa, top 40? Can we be intentional about that and create the supportive and ecosystem that will enable that to happen? And we also need to be intentional about globalizing our black industrialists so that they are not just confined to South Africa. There's an 8 billion population out there that needs the products that are being produced by companies from South Africa.
The policies are sound. Let's see more and better implementation of those policies. And where we identify gaps, such as the funding gaps, you raised the collateral and the own contribution gaps, let's be innovative and creative around supporting that, because then we'll be able to achieve the intentions.
Your parting shot?
My parting shot, you said we must address the President and
Mr. Patel.
And Mr. Patel.
Although you don't want his shoes.
No, the first one, I would say that, and I speak now on behalf of the black professionals. Can government just leave them alone? Let them do what they are trained to do. We want them to come back into the SOEs. And most of these SOEs, that's the only privilege you have, to be an aviation specialist, to be a railway specialist, to be the ports, to be Denel, and all of those complicated things. You can only find them there, to be an authority on pipelines. And so if we cannot get these black professionals into these entities, simply because they are suffocated by government sometimes with seriously corrupt instructions, we are contaminating.
I think the message has come through that transformation is here, and transformation has been successful. When it has all its pitfalls, we must correct those pitfalls and move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Godongwana and your panelists, for sharing your insights and raising issues in such a sharp manner for this nation to consider as we make our way forward, trying to transform the economy whilst making sure that we grow it at the same time. One more time, thank you very much. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, I'm going to ask you to come to the stage so that you can meet some of the newly appointed members of the Black Business or BBE Council, Black Economic Empowerment Advisory Council, that you appointed recently. And today is going to offers us an opportunity to showcase the work being done to cluster, coordinate, and bring together groups of exporters, industrial innovators, filmmakers, and other South Africans engaged in value-adding activities in the productive sector of the economy. And now I'm going to call on the members of the council to come and meet with the president here on stage. President Cyril Ramaphosa, if you can please come and join us here for the photo opportunity. The council is made up of the following, and please come forward as I call your name. Dr. Ntabise Moleko, an academic specialist on industrial development funding. Sbongile Sambo, who runs a company in the aviation services sector. Sibusiso Mapatiane, black industrialist, runs his own metal foundry business. Kanki Matabane,
who is CEO of the Black Business Council. Mayor Gloria Sirobe, please come back. The founder of Whiphold Investments. Ajay Lulu, Chartered Accountant and Triple BE Specialist. Mayor Louise Tipe, Senior Leader in the Labor Movement. Ms. Makalen Gwenya, Young Trade Unionist and Researcher Forum, Truancy and Youth Movement at NEDLEC. James Hodge, Chief Economist at the Competition Commission. Ms. Katu Lambani Makwela, Director of Company in the Healthcare Sector. And Ms. Irene Dimakatso Morati, a young internal auditor. And this offers us an opportunity to introduce the Council that plays an important advisory role on BEE matters to the nation. And this is an opportunity to take a picture with the President. I'm also going to ask the Black Exporter Network members to start preparing to come forward. The Black Export Network, made up of several companies, including Amangoma Resources, Blendtech, Desert Food Corporation, Desoft, Eastern Trading, Elegant Line, Chemicals, Epic Food, Flat Food, an MOU that's going to be signed between the representative and the Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, Minister Ibrahim Patel. Be on standby. As I've said, in the meantime, please come forward, members of the Black Exporter Network. We will be calling on stage other formations, the Black Industrial Innovators, Sustainability Firms, and Beneficiation Businesses. Be on standby to meet the President, as well as the Black filmmakers. We will be giving you the opportunity. But for now, we are going to have the signing ceremony or signing opportunity, the MOU partnership with the government, the Black Exporter Network representatives. The other members, please line up next to the President so pictures can be taken. I've called on several companies so far: Smith Capital, Technology Bains Transformer, Loaded Life Trading. Black Exporters Network includes Kopano Brickworks, Makwande Supply and Distribution, Mutle Mining Projects, Nkomazi Cotton Development Project, Ario, the Ario company as well, Met Press, Mutalifi Engineering, Naledi Rail, Nescon Flexibles, Makarenge Electrical Industries, MC Designs. Yes, yes, yes. In the meantime, the Black Industrial Innovators, Sustainability Firms and Beneficiation Businesses, be on standby. This is a network that's been launched today, and it's made up of the following companies. Dalisu Holdings, Makamisa Foods, Yamezela Metering, Nkrumah Textile and Clothing, Cavalli Chemical Group, Eastern Trading Company, Manedi Pets, Mukatangi Farming Operations, VM Automotive, Mtembu Tissue Covering, Remco Manufacturing, Ario, Sems Tissue, Nyanza Light Metals, ZA Gear, Procurex Advisory. Please come to the stage. And then the automotive network, be on standby. Factor Code, Annex Logistics, Delberg Engineering, MSF Trailers, Steelworks Projects, MCR Plastics, Ocean Peaks Trading, Dunlop Belting, Manufacturing, and&C Maintenance and Spares, Dalama Amateur, CZ Electronics Manufacturing, Mbali Industrial Solutions, Oil Spill Excellence, Fire Raiders, Agent P-Path Capital, Taleka Manufacturing, and Africa Auto Group. Okay. All right, we're also going to have an MOU signed. If we can get the table back and the chair so the minister can, together with the representative, sign an MOU with this particular group of the Industrial Innovators, Sustainability and Beneficiation Businesses. Oh, let's do all of them. Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Now this is the photo opportunity for the automotive sector. Duma. Oh, Terence, Duma. Yes, one more, but no. Sure. Later. Just and we'll be doing everything. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
please go forward.
No, I'm still calling Alan. Okay, I hope we've got all the filmmakers, representatives here on stage with the president. I hope you made it to the stage. But let's move on. And now, of transformation. And for the next photo opportunity, I'm calling on Minister Ibrahim Patel to join the president on stage. Minister Ibrahim Patel, please come to the stage and join the president. And here we're going to talk about Worker Owners Network, the network of women industrialists, network on localization, network of young industrialists, and black automotive from the evolution of our transport companies, management, urban crowd, youth, Sasana Studio, Cortex Textiles, Energy Generation Africa, Steam Generation Africa, Ferro SA Holdings, and Beauty Organic Super Soaps. Please come to the stage as we call your name. And then, I'm going to quickly move to the worker-owned, the Worker Owners Network. One fact that we may not know is that over 400,000 South African workers have a stake in the firms they work in, and that progress has been made possible by a responsive legislative agenda, by responsible corporate citizens, and increasingly by many firms who are also incorporating worker representatives in decision-making structures. The following should please make their way towards the stage. Candice Nzeku of Astron, Siyabu Telezi of Consul, Tumisi Cyril of PepsiCo, William Mokhase, Eb Inpev, Buyin Nikmani Amaraka DCLM, Tlabedi Lituka Sibanye Stillwater, Mpo Moyere Gift Antonio Impala Platinum,
Melissa Fori Sasso, T. Nengovela Cash Build, Andy Deltri Ebo Automotive, Solima Shiani Tato Mahlong Simeka Capital, Libusa Mabulwani Opticycle Waste Recyclers, D. Governor, Selrose Empowerment Staff Trust, Florence Mocheta Afrimat, Elias Pala Mighty Kalushi Coca-Cola, Dulechang Malapani Oceana, Alatambalu ILB Helios, Nomfundo Stirman Rhinoplastics, Jabulo Linda Makarenge Industries, Suleiman Tito Biodelta, Ashish Vema Vie Aluminium, Fabio Monsu Brecon South Africa, Gigs Ngayane SA Switchboard, Cecil Brahma Sun Orange, Stephen Taylor Kruger Berries, Pet Notada Basmark, Pierre Obunye. Please be on standby. The group that you see on stage is the women. Yes. As indicated, the group that we see on stage with the president now, these are representatives of the worker owners or representatives of the worker owners networks. I've already called them out by name. Please get on the podium with the president for the photo. They represent over 400,000 such workers in the country at this stage. Yeah. That's yeah. Yes. Huh? That's the last thing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, those are some of the networks that are represented here this morning, and thank you very much to the representatives of the worker network. Thank you. And Mr. President, thank you very much for obliging us with this photo opportunity. The next session is going to focus on strengthening the impact of transformation, what we should focus on and where we should go. Minister Ibrahim Patel is going to be on stage with the following panelists: Nolita Fakude, the chairperson of Anglo-American South Africa; Elias Munache, the president of the Black Business Council, COC, to be with you. And Minister Patel, the opportunity is yours
Sabine, thanks so much
to
for
share
coming.
with us
Great having you
ideas on how we can strengthen the impact of transformation. Thank you.
Allow me to take you on a journey. Zumbe district in the southern KwaZulu-Natal. They are one of the black industrialists in South.
My name is Imran Baks, Woven Products, based
on the KZN South Coast. For the schoolwear market, corporate wear, and fashion markets. We received the Production Incentive Program and CTCIP incentive grants were of great assistance to our company. This allowed us to upgrade our equipment, thus putting us in a position to deal with the challenges to apply best practice and world-class manufacturing standards to our business. We were able to upskill our staff through 5S, supervisor management, and planning training as examples. We were also able to implement the automation of systems. This process led us to the ISO 9001 certification, becoming a part of our standard. Technology is a key element in maintaining the edge in the textile manufacturing operation. This particular project will create 18 jobs. The total number of jobs retained are 61.
I'm Molly Moray and I work for sample department. I make the samples for customers. In the future, I see myself continuing to work for Imran Textiles.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very distinguished panel of the President has referred to the areas that we need to focus on. My question to you is, what do you think we're getting right? If you had to pull out one area that you think we're on track, what is that? And then I'd like you to tell me one thing that you do differently, where you think we need to change or address matters first. And I'm going to ask first Kebisi Jonas. Kebisi, you've been in government. You were Deputy Minister of Finance. You were an MEC for Finance in the Eastern Cape before that. You're in business now. Reflect a little bit, what are we getting right? What should we do differently?
Thank you very much, Minister. I think the first point to make is that at a strategic level, the discussion about has tended to focus on rent seeking and is to shift the narrative. And in a sense that I think successfully, I think it has shifted the narrative to focus on increasing the black share of the productive economy, which is something I think that carries with it a potential to really deepen the debate about transformation in the country. And I would say that if you look at the numbers, yes, they are positive. I think there is a positive trend in the number of companies participating. There's in the rent value of the investment that's being made. Yes, there is a big push. But for me, I think you have at the beginnings of the consolidation and alignment event part of the way forward. That's the first thing. The second, I think, success area is you can see there is now emerging an emerging ecosystem developing. I mean, if you think about it, historically there has been no alignment between DFIs on one hand, the IDCs, etc., and all the other DFIs around supporting black industrialists or supporting, for that matter, broad-based black economic empowerment. There was no alignment between DFIs at national level and at provincial level, etc. And you can see the success of national DFIs in this area of coordination, which is something that I think the time was in government before I got fired. It was not in existence. And my view is that moving forward, maybe we should consolidate the ecosystem that emerges. The last point is, to date, Black Industrialist program has always tended to be a public sector debate. And I think what I see, whether it's through licensing or what have you, but what the program seeks to do now is to create greater linkage and alignment between some of the initiatives and activities in the private sector and the initiatives in the public sector. Certainly there's a lot to do in that area, but it bodes well for the future. Thanks, Minister.
Thank you. Kebisi is also the chair. Have demonstrated is possible. What do you think we're getting right? And what would you change? You've got a Congress coming up. What are you going to tell your...
Manbulise, being right, the 20 industrial economic growth with a legal speed that we need. And we know that we are participating as organized labor government is also part of it and also business. So at the level of NEDLAC, I think it's the great work that we have managed to do as the constituencies that are in NEDLAC in driving these 20 industrial master plans. But what we think we should see more in them is black industrialists that are more, it has a potential of creating more job opportunities. And I loved what Cindy raised in the previous panel about the township economy. We seem not to paying much attention to it, and I think buying local is gonna open the taxes. She was saying you have service centers that are not recognized when we buy cars at VW, at Mercedes-Benz, in the dealership. In the number of years of working in the auto industry, have gone back to the township and opened up their service centers, which we are not supporting. We think buying local and also ensuring that the township economy, particularly where black people are, is what should be focused on and boosted. And we think government should pay more attention to it. And lastly also is to ensure that the black industrialists that have already received assistance from government are able to plow back to the economy and also to the black township economy. Because if you're going to have it for yourself, and the cycle does not really take everyone ahead, it will be you and those that are close to you, and the doors seem to be closed for the rest of, are also going to be playing their part in impacting
that. But Ilyas Monage, you're a steel maker, you produce steel, you're also the president of the Black Business Council. What do you think?
Afternoon, Minister. We are doing right in terms of creating an environment for individuals that are entrepreneurs, including the black industrialists, in identifying city. The extent of the black industrialists and entrepreneurs on an annual basis to say, this year this is what we have achieved. We are not doing that. And if we are not doing that, the narrative in the public gallery is then, as a country, a financial institution, in terms of either a decline, to say, the reason why we've declined your application is A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. So that individual can basically then go back and understand the reasons and the rationale why there is a rejection or a decline, so that we can then learn from black industrialists is around export opportunities, and including even networking, because you might have a situation where company A, they also then identify a market outside South Africa, but they're not then bringing others along. In terms of learning, supposed then to do is around clamping and addressing the question of fronting. Because we might think that we need then to look at one, beefing up the commission to deal with fronting, and business to assist that process, so that it's not only the role and the responsibility of the commission, it's our responsibility jointly. The other part is around the interaction and collaboration and alignment between various institutions. Whether you want to talk about DTIC, there are various grants and programs, they need them to be aligned with various institutions, IDC and other financial institutions, so that whatever that is missing from the other side can be complemented by another institution, so that we don't have to move from A to B or C, so that there is a clear referral in terms of dealing with those issues. And I'm saying those are some of the things that going forward we need then to close the loophole. The other part for us, Minister, is around utilizing procurement, the preferential procurement, so that we then drive a transformatory agenda, not only for state-owned entities or enterprises, but even the private sector, because we have two things. We have in the BEE, the enterprise development and the corporate social responsibility. We need then to find a way where we can then trace and track it in terms of the contributions that companies they're making on the enterprise level and corporate social responsibility, so that it then becomes a clear program for tracing and tracking in terms of understanding. I think we are doing right. And yes, of course, the numbers, if you are not part of the room, the gallery, they don't know the extent of the things that you are doing. And I think, again, the point that it was raised by the previous sitting is that we need also then to look at access to markets, access to funding, so that we then close that.
Fakude, Nolita, you've been in a senior management position in SAS, seen this journey of transformation over a long period. What are we getting right? What is the one thing that you think we should change?
Good afternoon to the President of the country and colleagues. For me, sitting here and reflecting on what journey we have had in the last 27 years of our democracy, I am sure that this conversation for today is the fact that Black industrialists, we have the full set, and in many respects, we either have a conversation colleagues are talking to. And that has been unfortunate because the regulatory framework that South Africa has on Black economic empowerment is actually the best framework, one of the best frameworks that you see, even if you go and talk to Canada, when they talk about First Nations, they talk about what are the set-asides for the people of the region and the indigenous people. When you go to the Middle East, in Qatar, when I was with Cyril, we operated in Qatar, there was a Qatarization program which spoke to the issue of saying what segment of your economy has got to be in the hands of the Qataris and also the people of that region, right up to who manages the business, who operates it, and also, obviously, the procurement. And in South Africa, we've had this beautiful framework that we have notion of what, at least in the last 10 years or so, has come through as a Black industrialist. So that we've gotten right, obviously, straightened out there. The opportunity also has been around the fact that with the regulatory framework that we have, we don't have to do much except really enforce. So the enforcement and monitoring of these structures is important. And it's not only government who needs to do that, it's the business associations, it's all the stakeholders to make sure that we all deliver our commitment to what we say is a transformation agenda. It's on really demographic representations in these businesses. Who is running the operations? Who are the decision makers? And then also procurement as well as other elements of the scorecard. And it's, as we talk to that inclusive economic growth realization,